Let's go over how to use the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. You can get this spreadsheet by going to racefortheprize.com. That's racefortheprize.com. We'll check that out later. So in column A, this is their qualifying position. That's the driver name. That is their salary for the contest. Yes, I'm going to walk you through everything. P1 rank, that's the fastest on a one-lap run. So Chase Elliott ran the fastest single lap. Long, that is a 10-lap run. So he was the fifth fastest on a 10-lap run, and his average speed, or actually it's going to be time across 10 laps, this is Martinsville, by the way, was a 20.2 second lap. And you can actually see that you're going to have to go to the 100th decimal to really, and I can stretch that out here. So actually it was a 20.15, 20.23 was Eric Almirola in 11th. Average, PA1 average, this is practice advanced. This is pulling data from lap by lap. And if you look at the lap by lap and throw out the warm-up slowdown laps, then Chase Elliott was 92.9 for an average of 10th. You kind of have to adjust that data on your own because someone might go into that and say, oh, well, he's not very fast. Well, one of the issues with simply looking at this for this particular race was that Chase Elliott did a 40-lap run, whereas some drivers only did a 20-lap run. So over the course of 40 laps, he's going to have quite a few slow laps. So when you compare, it's comparing apples and oranges. So you have to do that kind of calculation on your own, which is easy to do, and it's fine for you to do. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes everyone pretty much runs 10, 15 laps, and it's not much of a big deal. But when you go to the shorter tracks, it's hard to just completely trust this column. You want to dig into that data. We'll do that here in a second. And then this just simply ranks. So that 90.29, we'll add a decimal here. 92.94 was the 10th fastest average. He was a lot faster than that. Again, at Martinsville, he did a 40-lap average. You're comparing him to drivers that didn't run as many. Fastest 5-lap average, he was the fastest. What was his speed? 20.1. On a 10-lap run, he was the fifth fastest. Average speed or time was at 20.2 seconds. 15-lap average, fourth fastest. There's his time. 20-lap, 25. I'm just ranking those. I'm not putting the speeds. This is NASCAR's average. NASCAR does not throw out the slow laps when they do their calculations. They just say, here's what his average was, and they will calculate the warm-up and slowdowns. But I put that data in there anyway to help you out. And then also, one of the things that I will do from time to time, usually I'm getting the habit of always doing this, is their queue time in round one, because NASCAR uses a funky round one, round two pairing, and occasionally we'll see Group A or Group B, one of them being loaded and Group B being really soft, and you'll see a good driver not qualify for the final round despite being very fast. And you can kind of see that here. These drivers did not qualify for the final round because they faced tough competition in their group, and if they were in the other group, they more than likely could have been on the pole. So I do this to kind of see, like, hey, these guys could be lap leaders, these guys could be fast lap leaders, or hogs as I like to call them. And so that's kind of a little cheat sheet there to help you understand. Obviously, these guys lack speed regardless of what group they were in, but there's always this group of 2 or 3 drivers that, unfortunately, because of the new qualifying, instead of just taking the 10 fastest cars, well, now it's 5 from one group, 5 from another, and because of the randomness, you will occasionally get guys starting right here in this section that are faster than 10th place cars. All right, March 21, fall race at Martinsville. Elliott finished 16th. He finished second in the spring race in 2021. He won the 2020 fall race. He finished fifth, so you get what those columns are. It's basically just giving finishing position of the previous, 8, 9, 10 races. Projections, my projections. What did I do? I projected Chase Elliott to win and score 80 hog points. That was pretty good. William Byron to win. These are ceiling projections. So you can't have 2 guys winning. Yes, I can if I'm trying to do ceiling projections. My second biggest hog was William Byron. Obviously, William Byron led a lot more than Chase Elliott, but those are the 2 drivers that I really liked. I also liked Ryan Blaney, who ran well. I like Kyle Busch, who did not run well, so you got to take the L there. But these 2 guys, I think the 3 that I was really on all ran pretty well. And then we can just see what's been going on in terms of current form. Hard to trust this data early in the 2022 season, but not completely crazy. But they are. Look, you got a plate track. Fontana is its own beast. Las Vegas, traditional intermediate track. Then you went to Phoenix, which is the short track, intermediate track hybrid. Then back to a plate track, then a road course, then a short track. Then we went to Martinsville. So there was a little bit of consistency with Richmond and Phoenix heading into this race. It remains to be seen what we're going to do with current form. But at this point in the season, typically you could lean on current form in 2019, 2020, 2018, 2017. It's a little trickier right now with this package and with the way that the schedule having 2 plate races and a road course and only 1 intermediate track, which is amazing because it used to be nothing but intermediate tracks. In the past, we knew more about the package. In the past, we raced more at intermediate tracks, and so current form was more consistent and more predictive. Right now, it remains to be seen. So right here, this is just their finishes. At Daytona, finished 10th. Chase Elliott finished 9th at Las Vegas, 11th at Phoenix. So there's that. This is real rating. What this data does is it takes a little bit better than average position, much better than finishing position. So if we look at Phoenix and we took his driver rating, which is supposed to calculate finishing position, laps led, speed in the corners, all these different things, and then it gives you a number from 0 to 150 that's not really that easy to understand and not really that useful. So I take those driver ratings from each race and we simplify it, which is kind of dangerous to do, but it's just a simple data point, and then rank them. Who was the best in terms of driver rating? Who was the second best in terms of driver rating? Who was third best? So Chase Elliott finished 11th at Phoenix, but he ran a much better race. He led laps. He ran into, I think he had a pit road issue. I can't really remember off the top of my head, but he was much better than 11th. And if you just look at, oh, well, he was 11th. I don't know if I can blame him at Martinsville. Well, not so fast because technically he had the third highest driver rating. He was pretty fast at Phoenix. He was better at Richmond than 14th. You probably should put him on his radar. So this is real, or this is rating rank. So we take their driver rating and we rank them. Then it works in reverse order too. We can see, or vice versa, where a driver gets a very good finish, and then you look at their driver rating rank, and we find out that, well, they probably benefited from a late race caution. I don't know if I can find someone at the, let's see, well, that's, like William Byron ran really well at Fontana, but he didn't get the finish that he deserved. And if you're only looking at finishing position and making based on finishing position, then you're going to say, oh, William Byron's not good. Well, actually, he was pretty good. Let's see if I can find someone here who got a good finish that didn't necessarily deserve it. Anybody? We would need a late race caution probably, or some chaos to help us find somebody that benefited. No, not really. Well, this sucks. Give me a second. I'm trying to think. It's not that easy to find these sometimes. Usually it is. All right, here's one. Kyle Larson finished 15th at Phoenix. No, that's the reverse. I want to see someone with a good number here and a bad number there. Sorry. Okay, so Kurt Busch finished 5th at Phoenix. He wasn't quite that fast. So that might be a little bit misleading playing him in that spot. What else we got? Anybody else that really outperformed where they ran? I don't want to look at the plate race. Actually, I guess you could look at Coda and see if someone manipulated the system and got a finish that they may not have deserved at Coda. So Michael Mcdowell finished 13th despite running 25th. Now, again, that could be Michael McDowell simply at a road course saying stage 1 doesn't matter, stage 2 doesn't matter, and so he's in the back. And NASCAR's calculating all that into his driver rating. Oh, you're running in 27th place. Yeah, I'm running in 27th place because it doesn't matter. The stages are going to bail me out. So that's not the best example either, but it does show you how you can look at these different data points. All right, Martinsville 1 and 2. What are all of these numbers? Better than average running position, better than driver rating rank in some ways. Is that just simply take how many laps did the driver run in the top 5? These are the Martinsville races. So top 5 laps, top 10 laps, top 15 laps, top 20, top 25, top 30. And then the same thing for Martinsville too. So if we looked at Martinsville, this is another way of really finding out. So if we go into Martinsville 2, and we want to see last year, Chase Elliott finished 16th at Martinsville. Is that correct? That is correct. He had an issue late in the race. Oh, I can't play him. Well, no, you probably can because he was in control of the entire race. How do I know that? Well, I watched the race, but a quick and easy way to do it would just say, well, who ran the most laps inside the top 5? Chase Elliott did. And there's only two people up there. There's Martin Truex Jr. and there's Chase Elliott last year. And so that tells you, look, average running position can be absolutely misleading because you can run 66% of the laps inside the top 5 and then DNF, and then 33% of laps you're running in 32nd place. And so when we calculate your average running position, so what NASCAR will tell you is, well, on average he was running in 20th place, when actually no, on average he was in first place, and then for the other part he was in 32nd place. So average running position can also be very misleading. That's why I like to look at top 5 percentage to see this is elite speed. These are the guys that I want to target for fast laps, laps led, for the hog points. And I can look at both races to get a really good idea. That's why I like Martin Truex Jr. a lot. But Martin Truex Jr. struggled this weekend in practice. Martin Truex Jr. struggled a bit in the race. JGR struggled. They just didn't quite have the elite car. But then again, no one could pass at Martinsville. That's a story for another podcast and this package. But this will give you some of the data that you could hold on to. You could also say, well, this was a day race as well, so it doesn't really help that much to look at the night cold race with the diffuser creating too much dirty air, etc. Another neat thing that you can do is looking at 15, 20, 25 in terms of looking for some value. Because, again, average running position can be misleading. Finishing position can be misleading. Real rating can be misleading. But this is not really misleading. If you run 30% of your laps inside the top 5, then you were there holding on to that spot for quite a significant amount of time, or 50%, or for whatever. You can't manipulate that, really. It is what it is. Now, so we can do that to find the elite drivers, but we can also take the statistic and look at some of these middle guys. We're like, I don't know which value guy I want to go with. I don't know which data point to trust. So we would look at we'll look at top 20 and see that, hey, Austin Dillon ran almost the entire race inside the top 20, almost 3/4 inside the top 15. He's right there. And for a guy starting 23rd, 7,700, and Austin Dillon had a great race. Austin Dillon maintained position. Austin Dillon wasn't that far off. Now, if you look at some of his recent finishes, you're like, I don't know if I trust Austin Dillon. He's okay. And 13 to 14, that's pretty good for a value guy. But that would help you if you were trying to separate him from someone else. I think a better way is to look at top 25 when we're really getting into the dirty guys that we may or may not like, to see what kind of talent they do or don't have. Obviously, all these guys, but I mean, Stenhouse running all those in the top 25 at 6,300. That's pretty strong. That's pretty solid. There's a significant drop off, though, as we see right here in the top 20, which means, yes, he's going to be in the top 25, but pushing him into the top 20, that's a bit of a stretch. That's kind of one analytical point that you can take from that, saying that, well, he can probably work in cash, which I would Stenhouse in cash. I don't know about that, but his upside seems to be limited. But what else we can do here is look at some of these cheaper guys like a Corey LaJoie, 58% inside the top 25, and then we compare him to some of the other cheaper guys like a Chase Briscoe. He was better than Chase Briscoe. Now, we've seen Chase Briscoe take the step forward this year. You'd want to calculate current form in, but that's one of those things you could use to do a tiebreaker. And even with some of these punts, you go down like, okay, can the guy even run in the top 30? Like Josh Bilicki, 63% of the laps inside the top 30, but only 20 here. Then we go over to, I mean, that's comparable to Michael McDowell, 61% in the fall race. Ross Chastain, just 65%. Bilicki was, and then you just simply compare Bilicki to these other guys, and hey, he was the punt. So if we were to rewind the clock and go back to, let's say, it's the fall of 2022, 2021, we could have looked at this data and said, all right, well, there's a clear difference here between these. I'm actually looking at Haley, but there's a clear difference between Haley, Bilicki. Let's see if there's any difference between the punts. And there is a little bit here. You got J.J. Yaley and Josh Bilicki doing a little bit inside the top 25. I wouldn't. That could be just lapping around. That could be meaningless. But for the most part, these guys, not much of a difference. Not very helpful there. But it's something to look at. Occasionally you'll get a data point that is helpful. Martinsville, probably not the best one to look at for that. All right, and then we would look at the real rating. This is another statistical category that I've created, that I've weighted. So I've taken all of this data from the season and through a formula, I've calculated a measure that I think is better than finishing position, a data point that's better than average running position, a data point that's better than taking the driver rating and simply ranking it. This is on a scale of 1 to 100, and it calculates their average running position. It calculates their laps led. It calculates the laps run in the top 5, the laps run in the top 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and I weigh it the way that I think is significant, and it gives drivers a rating from 0 to 100. And so you can see from 0 to 100 where these drivers are rating. And if we were to just look at the average from the current season to see where people are, I don't need your Daytonas on my screen. You'll see that Ryan Blaney so far this season has an 88 out of 100, like what, a B, B plus, depends on your grading scale. I mean, today that's pretty much an A plus with our grading scale. And you can see what he has done. And he's got this low rating at Las Vegas, which I would have to look off the top of my head. I imagine there was some sort of issue. I can't remember. I'm blanking. Phoenix, a nearly perfect score. Atlanta, I probably could take that out. I could probably take Coda out. I'm going to just leave it in. At Richmond, a 97. Very strong. William Byron has been very strong. Chase Elliott's been very strong. I mean, look, the 3 best drivers this season were arguably the 3 best drivers. I mean, it's not even that much of an argument. That's why I think this data point that I have created, real rating, is so important. I mean, look at what real rating says going into last week or the 2021 Spring Martinsville race. It ranked Blaney as number 1. I believe Blaney finished 4th at Martinsville. It was very difficult to pass. He was very upfront about that. If Blaney had track position, he could have been the guy that was out front the entire time. William Byron, heading into that Martinsville rating, my statistical analysis and calculation said William Byron was the 2nd best driver. He crushed at Martinsville. My real rating, my formula, my calculation at racefortheprize.com said Chase Elliott was number 3. Hey, he crushed. Ross Chastain, a guy that's never really been good at Martinsville, always struggled at Martinsville. I mean, you can see the data right here. 1% of his laps inside the top 5, 0 in the top 5. 14% of laps inside the top 15 last fall when he was supposed to be getting better. The numbers do not lie. He has struggled at Martinsville. 27-17. Now, these numbers are bad because that was like premium motorsports. Either way, this has not been a great racetrack for him. But this season, his current form, he is the 4th best driver in terms of my calculation of real rating, and he had a great day at Martinsville. Joey Logano also nearly won the race. He was on Byron's bumper at the very end. So, yeah, I think my formula here is pretty good, and you're going to want to check it out. You're going to want to use it. It is very useful. You don't have to. You don't have to go to racefortheprize.com, click on the Patreon button, and sign up and have access to this data. But I think it's useful. All right, so going through the different tabs, PA1, Practice Advanced 1, it's all lap-by-lap data. It's all there. Everything that you want. I encourage you to manipulate it however you want with average formulas, with count if formulas. There's a lot of different fun things that you can do with this raw data. I don't do a lot with it because I don't want to lead you down one direction. I want to lead you down another direction. Then everybody follows and everyone hits in the same spot. What I want to do is present to all the different spreadsheet users. Here's the raw data. I'll give you some ideas. And then you take those ideas and you go in your direction so you can differentiate so that you can be the guy on top of the board. If I do everything for you and lead you all down a narrow path and we all end up in the same spot, and if we're successful, then we don't win much. And if we lose, then we all lose. That's not a good idea. The best thing is to provide you with the tools and the resources and data. And there's a lot of different formulas you can Google. But off the top of my head, average if is something that you're going to want to look up. You can Google search that and you can plug that in. Count if is another thing that you can toy around with. And there's some other more advanced stuff, but I'm not going to go into that. This is the Optimizer tab. If you have the Optimizer downloaded, you just click on it and you let it run. Open Solver is the Optimizer. You can get it through Google Sheets add-ons. You can Google Open Solver if it is still available in Google Sheets. If it is not still available in Google Sheets, there's an Open Solver option for Microsoft Excel. And I have an explanation in the Google Sheets showing you how you can take this spreadsheet, put it into Excel, and then run Open Solver. So if Open Solver is available in Google Sheets and you can add it, do it. All you do is click it. It's already programmed into the sheet. You don't have to do any programming. You just click the button, you click run. There is an explanation video right here somewhere. It's in the sheet somewhere, and you can run it. And then There's also a Microsoft Excel version because Google Sheets and OpenSolver have a bit of a feud. I don't know if they have resolved that yet, but I know that OpenSolver still works for Google Sheets. Hog points. So we got all the hog points, which are fast laps and laps led. Not going to do it. Not going to get that. So last year in the fall race, the driver who scored the most scored 116. The driver who scored the second most scored 41. The driver who scored the third most hog points, that's not right. No, I'm sorry. The driver who scored the most DFS points had 116 hog points. The driver with the second most fantasy points, not the second finish, not second in hog points, the second most fantasy points had 41 hog points. The driver with the third most fantasy points only had 6. The driver, though, with the seventh most, this is probably because they had an issue, scored 34 hog points. And so there it is. And then what we do here is average it out. So on average, the driver with the most fantasy points had 116 at Martinsville. Now, remember, this was 500 laps, so you had to kind of calculate that on your own. The driver with, on average, the driver scores the 5th most fantasy points has about 13. That gives you an idea. Here we go. Starting position to give you an idea, maybe before the race, where you want to target. And you could see that the driver starting first, on average, scores 31.1. The driver starting second, on average, 46. For whatever reason, this 3 spot, now that's heavily weighted because of the Brad Keselowski race, these races in 2019 with the high downforce, high horsepower, it was impossible to pass. And so you saw Truex and Martin Truex and Brad Keselowski just absolutely destroying the field. I believe those are the races. Either way, so that's kind of skewed a little bit. But then you see last year, second place, front row. Either way, the bigger takeaway is most of your hog points are coming from the front. It is not easy to pass at Martinsville. It's even more challenging now than ever. And then last, we just look at specific drivers. On average, Martin Truex Jr., 46 hog points per race. Elliott, 39. Logano, 38. And you see the specific races where they got those points. March, this is just simply the results from last March's race, the optimal lineup, and specific NASCAR notes from the race. And then we got the value plays that hit right over here. So again, you have all the data from the race, driver, where they finished, all the specifics. So you can do that. There's the March spring race. Again, there's your optimal lineup, specific race notes from NASCAR. And then just going in chronological order back through all the races throughout the years. Then track will give me their finishing position. So Truex finished third, second, 13th, second one. That's their average. That should say average finish, I believe. Or no, this is rating rank. Sorry, not finish, rating rank. So Martin Truex Jr. had the third highest driver rating, second highest driver rating, 13th highest driver rating. So not just their finishing position. This is that more finite version driver rating. And so if we average all those up over the last, 7 years, Martin Truex Jr. has been the highest rated driver. Remember, that's average position, laps led, speed, finishing position, and then DFS rank is where they scored fantasy points wise. So Truex scored 6th most points, 3rd most points, 10th most fantasy points, 2nd most fantasy points, 1st most fantasy points. You got it. You know how it goes. There is an average, how many wins they have, how many top 5s, how many top 10s. And this is calculating right here. So how many times did he score the most fantasy points? Once. How many times did he end up with a top 5 fantasy day? 4 times. How many times the top 10? 7 times. So on average, he scores around the 5th most fantasy points, which is the best. Elliott 2 times has been the leader on the scoreboard. Logano 2 times leader on the scoreboard. That's right there. Average, this is just the practice data. If you wanted to look at it in a different way. If you wanted to, because I don't put their speed from top 20 and top 25 and top 30 in the main page because there's just too much data. But if you really wanted to dig into it and see, all right, well, how fast really was Chase Elliott? Well, Chase Elliott, 20.19 was his 30-lap average. All right, moving forward, you don't need to know that one. Hog points from the season. So Ryan Blaney is getting the most hog points. Again, that's fast laps and laps led. 10 hog points at Daytona, don't really care, but 59 at Phoenix is significant. 42 at Richmond is significant. When it comes to running in the high horsepower, low downforce package, Ryan Blaney has been pretty strong. Average position, this is their average running position. 8th, 7th, 5th, 8th, 9th, 4th. The best season, Ryan Blaney running in 9th. Pure results, finishing position, this is on the main page as well. Best average finish this year is Chase Elliott in 11th. There you go. Rating rank, again, this takes their driver rating, and then it ranks them. So at Phoenix, Ryan Blaney had the highest driver rating. At Richmond, he had the second highest driver rating. And if we average that out on the season, 5th best. So my real rating, not too much far off from the rating rank rating, but significantly different from people just looking at results. And it's pretty close to average position as well. Pretty close. This is your 2021 results. Again, here's that real rating data I was talking about. So mine, see the difference between mine and theirs, I got Ross Chastain bumped up here, which would have been very helpful to you at Martinsville. The results obviously doesn't have Ross Chastain. Average position isn't as bullish on Ross Chastain. Rating rank is also not as bullish on Ross Chastain. I, through my calculations, have been much more positive towards him. Not necessarily positive, it's just that's what the data says. That's what the data show. That's just the qualifying data that I input. That's just the pricing data that I input. This is the fall race, the second race in Martinsville. If you want to look at the lap by lap. So typically every single week, I'll let you look at all the laps from the previous race. And you can dissect the race as deep as you want and get as deep as you want into it and look at every single lap. I don't have the cautions marked in here. I should have had the cautions marked. Usually I will have the cautions marked. You'll see here that cautions will be marked in this spreadsheet. See, so you know when the cautions are, you know where the stage breaks are. They'll help you understand some of the cycles and changes. And then this is the mass entry tool. You just copy this data and you put it into another spreadsheet and it'll create 150 lineups for you. So you don't do anything with this. This is just simply the sheet calculates all this crap and then you copy it and you're going to paste it into another sheet. And that sheet runs a bunch of stuff in the background and spits out 150 lineups for you. So you don't really need that. There it is. That's basically everything you need from the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. And let's go to racefortheprize.com and show you. If you go to racefortheprize.com now, please go to racefortheprize.com. And then you go to, I got a bunch of stuff here. You can see my blog, which unfortunately is on hiatus because I am now covering NASCAR, F1, NBA, MLB probably soon. It's not official yet on that. USFL, PGA, NFL. Am I missing anything? Yeah, so since I'm covering all those fantasy sports officially and get paid for it, so don't cries for me and get paid to do it. That means my hobby, my true passion goes on the back burner. All right, so you go to racefortheprize.com. You go to this button that says Brandon Cruz DFS, this red thing, this red box. That'll take you to Brandon Cruz's Patreon. Brandon and I are working together to create resources and tools to help you enjoy fantasy NASCAR, to help you enjoy fantasy F1. I do all the work for you to make it easy for you to build lineups. I'm constantly evolving the sheet, changing things, adding things, manipulating things, trying to make it better for me, make it better for you, and help people win money, but also help people have fun and enjoy fantasy NASCAR and not have to labor and do all the data collection. Read all the articles, look for all the resources, do all the formulas, fix the formulas. Fix the formula fixes the formula. It's just the way that it is. If you've ever tried to do it on your own, which I know a lot of you have, and you said, nah, I'm just going to pay him the money, then you get it. Now, if you haven't, go for it. That's probably the best selling point I can ever do is like, hey, you don't want to pay for this. You don't want to support me and Brandon. You don't want to be a Patreon. You don't necessarily appreciate it and think it's valuable. I'm on board with you. Go do it on your own. And then after I bet about 20 minutes, you will realize just pay the guy. Because look, even if you were able to build a starter spreadsheet, then you have to build onto that. Then you have to update that. Then you have to change formulas because NASCAR and all these different data feeds are always changing the way that things are presenting. The sport is constantly changing. Every week you're having to make changes, adjustments. Go for it. Give it a try. And then I guarantee about 80% of you within an hour say this sucks. Maybe 20% make it through a week. And then like by the end of a month, there might be 1% hanging on. And that person's just hanging on because they're trying to do an I told you so. So it's worth it if you like having your free time. If you don't, if you want to sit at a computer, do a spreadsheet all the time, then fine. Yeah, don't join the Patreon. But something to think about. Hopefully this video was helpful. racefortheprize.com. That's where you can get access to the Fantasy NASCAR spreadsheet. There's no commitment. And if you don't think it's helpful, then you just quit at any time. And no one will worry about that at all. Thanks for joining me. I, Pierce Dietrich, will be the most viewed fantasy racing analyst. I, Pierce Dietrich, will be a top-selling Amazon author. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope that was helpful to you. Racefortheprize.com. Check out Brandon's videos and Brandon's content and my YouTube videos. Let's trip the lights. Fantastic.